This week I'll be sending you out more pages. The text is complete, but I've enhanced the value of it tremendously in parts, particularly. In fact, you can see all my notes all over the pages here in pencil.
You mean the article?
Yeah, the article, yeah. Oh, no, yes, the notes for the class.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Now, research into the history of mankind can be very revealing. We find, for example, that in 15th century England, a man had to work only 2.5 days a week to earn his living. I use Great Britain as an example for the best records are kept there. In other places, wars and various upheavals have allowed destruction of early records of human affairs. And this Professor Thorell Rogers, with his book, 6 Centuries of Work and Wages, has a lot of references missing. For the simple reason, he said, there aren't any. Nobody, between the 9th century was when the barbarian invasions were simmering down, and up to the 15th century, 6 centuries he studied work and wages. And Dr. Pierce did beautiful charts out of this and showed that 2.5 days at the most in peak period of England, say about the 15th century. He's got an exact figure, somewhere 1542 or something was the economic peak. Now, Genevieve, in English, a French chemical engineer, friend of mine, and I sat two of us sat one Sunday afternoon in Montreal, and her words were, "C'est ridicule, that's ridiculous. You couldn't have a one-day working week today, that'd be impossible." Well, I said, in the past, historians have shown 2.5 days a week was all that they had to work. And they've got it backed up. Father Walsh, with his beautiful book on 13th, the greatest century, he's backing it all up with facts and figures. How much did a man get paid for so much? And he was allowed a gallon of ale every day. Wow, I wish we could go back those days.
Go there. And did he delineate the different fields though?
Yes.
A farmer would have to work more than that.
That didn't have to work more than that. Some did. But there were, I'm going to come to in a second, facts and figures I want to give you. And one of the best is by a non-Catholics. People have said it was a great Catholic period, but the best historian on this was Macaulay, and he was not a Catholic. And he produced beautiful figures on this to show that it was a rich period. Let me read some of these things out to you. Activity occupying 1/3 of a lifetime must be culturally significant. You see, they had the 3 8s, 8 hours of work, 8 hours of play, and 8 hours of sleep. Now, play, they meant attending to your personal affairs and things like that. While conditions varied with the country and the century, the medieval Christian calendar generally mandated 52 days of enforced leisure, plus from the 12th century on at least 40 saints' days. 40 saints' days? How many have we got in this country?
0.
No,
They keep dropping them.
Keep dropping them, exactly. To these holidays could be added unlimited local church feasts averaging more than 30, creating an astonishing 126 or more days per year in which work was not allowed. I gave this lecture to a group, I think it was in Buffalo, and Monsignor, somebody or other, their chaplain, said, you know why the church mandated a lot of this? Was to protect the worker. To protect the worker. Enforced public holidays, holy days of obligation. Englishmen added celebrations of St. Swithin's Day. Wouldn't want to lift with that, would you? Canterbury townsfolk honoured by holiday not only St. Thomas Becket, but also St. Alban, Dunstan, Ethelreda, and Edward the Confessor. Universities had their own holidays. 14th century Montpellier's 77, plus Sundays, total 133 yearly festivals. Moreover, many holidays were not limited to 24 hours. They'd gone for 3 days. People were so well off. just the opposite to what cheap historians have said. I've got one of those historians at home, a book by one of those historians, and he's so cheap in his cracks at the medieval period, in which I've traced through other books of this. I've got a lot of medieval stuff because I had to teach medieval philosophy, and they had, he says things and sneering at the medieval period, when it was nearly all the world was Catholic, the civilized world was Catholic. It is significant to learn that Cobbett, in his History of the Protestant Reformation, has made an exhaustive study of just this question of the material and economic condition of the people of England before and since the Reformation. He says, everything shows that England was, this has been copied out of, I think it was, I've forgotten whose book it is now. I have to look at the notes at the back. Before and since the Reformation. He says, everything shows that England was then a country abounding in men of real wealth. They are fed in great numbers. Sorry, not fed, that's not what he says. Yes, he does. They are fed in great abundance, that's what he says. Everyone, according to his rank, hath all things which conduce to make mind and life easy and happy. Dr. Pierce, my very wonderful friend, there are no natural sinecures. Rent is the natural source of communal revenues. In this sense, the feudal system was more an exchange economy than ours is. In these days, before the modern centralized state had arisen, government was largely local government, and the rent receivers rendered to the people services of a public or common nature. For example, public defense, education, worship, care of the sick. Let me stop there. I was in England, London. No, it wasn't London, I'm sorry. I think it was Chester, somewhere like that. It's a very medieval town. I went into a local pharmacy to get some vitamin tablets. When travelling, I always think it's a wonderful thing to carry vitamin tablets because you don't know what kind of food you're getting or you're going to have your next meal, where it'll be, etc. And young lady says to come and talk to you if you like. I said, that's all right, I'm a pharmacist myself. Oh, well, you must, Mr. So-and-so must meet you. So Mr. So-and-so came out, we got into conversation. He said, would you like to see our hospital? I said, what do you mean, your hospital? He said, this pharmacy is built over a medieval hospital. And he took me down under the pharmacy. And he said, there's all these columns and things, you know, vaulted things. It was beautiful. I've not seen a hospital anywhere in the world like that. In England, Australia, Canada, or the US.
Were there windows there? Natural light?
Yeah, oh yes, but of course a lot of that was covered up. Yeah. Anyway, he goes on. This is what they provided, the people receiving the rent. Legal administration, schools, universities, pensions for the aged and the widowed, bursaries for the young, endowments for marriage, etc. But we have changed all that medieval nonsense. Here he's getting sarcastic. Now rent is the perfect sinecure, that is, command over exertion, without any rendering of exertion, capitalizable usury. It is a right without any duties, property without responsibilities, that contradiction called a valuable income, an income that can be bought and sold. Dr. Pierce was the top man in this field. I'm absolutely... He was a medical practitioner, head of the very big Catholic hospital in Australia. We regarded him as a first-class philosopher, and he was internationally known as an economist. His works are unpublished. I have them here, unpublished. I had them copied and sent to the Centre of Economic and Social Justice. Norm Curlin, the president there, and Michael, whatever Michael's other name is, they're great friends of mine. And they saw these works and thought they were great. Michael Greeny, yeah. Anyway,
What form of government might they have had that would make this possible?
more local government, not a big centralized government.
Less government.
Less government. Aristotle says you can have too much government, you can be too much unity in the nation, too much unity and not enough liberal freedom, as it were. Anyway, So this is Dr. Pierce, by the way, which I just read. In case one should suppose that other human needs are neglected, consider the following. Their attention to hygiene can be best shown by a consideration of the hospitals. These generations gave us a precious lesson by eradicating leprosy, which was as general as tuberculosis is now, and Dr. Pierce has got in square brackets, at the time of writing. The hospital erected at Tanière in France in 1293, the sister of St. Louis. Modern architect says, it was an admirable hospital in every way, but it is doubtful if we today surpass it. It was isolated, the ward was separated from the other buildings. It had the advantage we often lose of being but 1 story high, and more space was given to each patient than we can now afford. The ventilation by the great windows and ventilators in the ceiling was excellent. It was cheerfully lighted, and the arrangement of the gallery shielded the patients from dazzling light and from drafts from the windows, and afforded an easy means of supervision, while the division of the roofless, low partitions isolated the sick and obviated the depression that comes from the sight of others in pain. It was, moreover, in great contrast to the cheerless white wards of today. The vaulted ceiling was very beautiful. That's what I saw in Chester, the vaulted ceilings, beautiful. The woodwork was richly carved, and the great windows over the altars were filled with coloured glass. Altogether, it was one of the best examples of the best period of Gothic architecture. It is startling to learn that although the year 1495 is considered to be the peak of economic development in England, yet within 100 years or so they had to introduce the poor laws. This happened with the upheavals caused by ruthless men throwing off religious restraint and the arrival of the Black Plague, which killed off the fittest men. I went to the public library in Chester, and I said, do you have Thorol Rogers' 6 Centuries of Work and Wages? Oh, I don't know, said one of the librarians. Let me have a look at that. So she went and got it. I went to check something from my memory, you see, and she went and got this copy. You had to climb right up about 3 stories or 3 rungs up of books, and came down and dusting all the dust off it. And I read something up. I said, it mentions Chester in here. I thought my memory was right. Half the people of Chester were killed by the Black Plague. There were several things which caused this loss in England. One of them was the Black Plague, which killed off people. Another one was the revolt, religious revolts. And men seized common lands, which were common before, and they put fences up, and you couldn't graze your cattle on the lands, etc., etc. And this was all described in this book. And this woman got so excited. Oh, wait till I show this to the chief librarian. We didn't know we had this there. She was very excited about it. You might claim that at that time men had far fewer needs and wants, whereas today these have increased considerably. For example, television, automobiles, computers, microwave ovens, and so on. This is the conversation that happened between Genevieve, the French chemical engineer that I spoke of in Montreal, and myself. I said to her, let's say that the goods we want have increased 100 times. Oh, I wouldn't say that much, she said. But our capacity for production has increased 1,000 times. Now, appealing to her vanity, you chemical engineers, you've produced wonderfully lots of things that we need today. Oui, d'accord. Yes, I agree, she says. If this is true, then why don't we have a greater saving of time and effort? If 2.5 days in the medieval period was all that was necessary in 1495, why do we have to work? Today people work 7 days a week and can hardly earn a living. What's gone wrong? Many people today have to have more than one job to support a family. Husband and wife are forced to go out to work, whereas even if only for the proper use of the division of labour, it would be better for the wife to be able to stay at home instead of being forced out of the home as many are now. So what's the cause of this problem? It's those 2 capitalisms which has been increased over the years. productive investment and anti-productive investment. I've got so many instances of that. I know a lot of them from Australia, more than I do here. We had 11 glassworks in the suburb of Newtown in Sydney. 11 glassworks. There's one there now, the Australian glass manufacturer. He stamped out the other. There were 9 actually. It must have been 10. It must have been 10 years. He had stamped them all out. He's known as Knockout Smith, the man Smith who owns the Australian glass manufacturing company. So we've got the capacity for probably 1,000 times production today, even if our needs are only increased by 100 times. And like in the prison, Dr. Peter Redpath, a professor of philosophy down on Staten Island, one of the I've forgotten now the college name. It's an outcrop of St. John's University in New York, in Germantown. And Peter said to me, he's instructing people in the prisons there, and they're manufacturing computers. I don't know what to do with them. They're not allowed to take things out of the place. They're manufacturing things. I don't know what to do with them. I said, I know what you can do with one of them, if you like. They've never come good. But, so you've got to judge the active investment by what its end is, what its aim is. It may not be what you want it to be, but then it might be. If you're trying to stop this person so you can get ahead, there's no reason why I shouldn't earn my living making something, producing some effort. But the minute I stop him from doing that, then that's gravely immoral, contrary to the natural order. One man said to me at Niagara University, but this is America. We do what we like here. You produce the goods or services, and you're going to go ahead. Well, I said, supposing I stop you from your work, would you like that? So I can go ahead? So I can have a monopoly? There's no reason why I shouldn't be the only person in the world making 3-headed teddy bears. But the minute I stop somebody else from making them, that's evil. It's an antisocial act for a start. So there's normal capitalism and abnormal capitalism. And as Father Woodbury on one occasion said, we could call them normal capitalism and bastard capitalism. And he said, I'm not calling it that from the bastards who practice it. So I've got this story here of a man from Sicily that Aristotle wrote about. He bought up all the iron. He became the only seller. And without much increasing the price, he gained 200%. And Aristotle was showing this, recorded that. And I've got the here laid out. Now, there are various aspects of this. Marshall McLuhan said that affluence creates poverty. Now, that's funny. When I said that, guess who attacked me in his monthly journal? Rush Limbaugh. He said, I said something about where there's riches, poverty goes with alongside it. He said, and where there are professors, there's a nutty professor always. He's referring to me.
That's right.
How did he know it was you?
Somebody said it to him.
Because he was nutty.
I gave a lecture in...
He's not the only nutty professor.
But I gave a lecture in Lockport years ago. And was it Lockport? No, it was in Buffalo, sorry. And the Buffalo News wrote a very fair write-up too, it was. And this was to lawyers, insurance agents, and financial investment companies, some organisation, I forgot what they call it now. I lectured for them a couple of times, once down in Louisiana rather. Anyway, this fellow wrote this up. So some fellow in Lockport, he got hold of this and typed it up and misunderstood, just didn't bother to inquire it, and wrote a 9-page diatribe, sent me a copy. The next thing, I get contacted from somebody who said, Rush Limbaugh doesn't like you. So he wrote me up in a thing that they call for Nutty Sayings of the Month or something like that. And he had Ted Kennedy, Fidel Castro, and Jesse Jackson. Now, I don't mind Jesse Jackson and Fidel, but damn it, I don't want to be put there with Ted Kennedy. I said that in Louisiana. And some women, when they're asked to give a write-up about or do some kind of a course evaluation, it was a week-long conference. And they said that nutty professor, something about he was vicious, because I said that. So Marshall McLuhan said that affluence creates poverty. He's not the only one. Henry George, a great American, by the way, who hit the nail on the head with all of this. And I think we've got time for me to outline what we could do. Taxation is one of the things that's absolutely shocking. All taxation, much of it, we reckon in Australia, 40% of taxation is immoral. And in the academy, remember, they're just like you people, the students we had there. And there were economists, there were physicians, there were physicists, there were all sorts of people. And housewives, and one fellow that was just a humble assistant, what would we call him, accountant in an engineering firm, became Professor Russell, and was very bright, but had no qualifications before that.
Could you explain that affluence creates poverty then?
Well, it's because of this anti-productive investment. You see? You're crushing people out, etc. So what can we do about a lot of this? I've got here the following can be used for anti-productive purposes: takeovers and mergers, deliberate creation of shortages, advertising, kickbacks, calendar marketing agreements. Like I went into Tops, and here's Coca-Cola being featured. Great big feature. I thought, but that's the price I saw on the shelf. It's the same price. Next week, it was Pepsi Cola. This is a calendar marketing agreement. Each week, they featured one of them by bribing the manager of that store. But
They do that with ice cream.
Yeah.
Farm.
yeah, they just
alternate.
and it's by bribing. Calendar marketing agreement, it's called. Calendar marketing, lost leaders, and so on. As I put here, in sum, there's no reason why one shouldn't earn his living, even with a monopoly. But he cannot perform an immoral act in order to establish a monopoly. That is, by preventing another from earning his living. So, there's terrible, unjust things in the world, and one of the worst is taxation. Well, where's the government going to get the money to run the country? I'll show you where it ought to be got. My friends, do you know where a tremendous amount of tax money goes to? Collecting taxes. Look at every store has to keep records. All their records are checkable somewhere or other. Inspectors, tremendous amount of things. One of my closest friends, I was best man for his wedding. He didn't realise there were better men than me, but the Victor Sahadi, of Lebanese origin incidentally, he's just recently retired, head of the Sales Tax Division Investigation Departments in Australia, in the tax. He had 12 departments working under him. What a costly thing that is. Sales tax. Now, let's see what is a more just tax situation. I can do this, we've just got enough time to do it. I'm going to start with an example from the early days of the United States. Suppose Joe and his wife decide to go out into the prairies. There's nobody there. They're going to start a farm. Where we start, dear? I don't know, wherever you like. Well, I like the view from here. See those mountains and that stream? It's lovely. Let's start here, eh? Now here's Joe. All the land had equal value. Nothing's very special about it, anything else. So Joe decided to establish his farm there. Now along comes Bill, and Bill says, where we start? Well, it'd be nice to be near some other folks. Now there's a little value in the land there. So Bill establishes his farm near the other fellow. They've become friends. And they think to themselves, Well, if you kill the fatted calf, the meat will go bad unless you use it up, so they share that. Then the next week, or whatever it is, the other one kills the fatted calf, and they share that. They can sit and smoke a pipe in the evening, the two men. The women can have a little natter together, or exchange stories and ideas about bringing up the children, etc. All sorts of things can happen. There's an advantage in association. Now comes Ted and his family. And along comes a couple of dear spinsters, Mary and Gertie. And they grow vegetables. And each person doing an act of exchange. They're all making something or growing something or making or performing some service for the others or something like that. So it goes on. Now they all see the value of being with A, B, C, D, E. Word gets back to Boston. Oh, pardon me, Boston. Where did that American accent come from? So word gets back to Boston that there's something happening there. We ought to do something about it. Money to be made. So they are able to get this man, Mr. Dollar Bill buys this land up. Then Dollar Joe comes in here. He buys the land up. Before we know we are, lots of land's being taken up by these money bag men. And before we know we are, there's a little community building up. Now, they all have these needs. They do acts of exchange. But why are we going to tax them? If Joe grows a cabbage, that's his business. He's growing a cabbage. If he wants to give half the cabbage to Ted and eat the other half himself, that's their private business, their private production. What has the community created? Can anybody answer that? What has the community created?
Leisure and economy.
Pardon?
Leisure.
Government. Exchange between each other.
No. The land value. Land values. They've created the value of the land. Here's Murgatroyd Winterbottom. He decides to open a farm out there. He hasn't got this advantage. These people now, they've formed a little marketplace here. And they do acts of exchange. But what they're exchanging is their own property, not the community property. What has been created is the land value. And that's what the American genius, Henry George. And by the way, the best authority on Henry George is Dr. Henry George Pierce. It's quite, I've never thought to ask him how he became Henry George, but he's written lovely little books on this stuff. I have a library of Henry George's works. But the marketplace here, that's where the value, the highest value is. Right in the centre of town. The land has the highest value. Whoever's closest to that has the advantage of time and space. He has a disadvantage of time and space. He should be taxed the least, and these should be taxed the most. But as it is now, this fellow's taxed as much as anybody else, because we're creating fictitious values with tax. We're taxing everything. What is there now? What a tax? They're talking about taxing the what you produce on the computer. Well, I have mentioned a couple of times when speaking before audiences that soon they'll be taxing our breathing. Somebody's already talked about that, taxing the air we breathe.
Carbon tax.
But
Carbon tax.
carbon tax, yeah. So I suggested there's a remedy for that. Hold your breath. 1 out of every 3. So, but that's where what should be taxed, the value of the land. Then you'll be encouraged to be on the outskirts, not packing in the cities. President Jimmy Carter set up a community to find out the United States was overpopulated. My friends, Great Britain was overpopulated in the 1770 when Australia was found. 1770, Great Britain was reckoned to be overpopulated, had 5 million people. Today I think it's got 55 million and nobody talks about overpopulation. It's an absurd idea. If we had so little land, we could grow vegetables up in the air, glass, buildings, etc. Dennis Darby's not here tonight, but his father, I've never met his father, but his mother has told me that the father always put that idea forward. He was a chemist, and we could grow vegetables up in the air by having glassed buildings, glassed windows, etc. We do it now with hothouses. What are they doing down in Lewiston, down near the shrine? Growing tomatoes. Hydroponics, yeah. And they're very good tomatoes.
Sure.
Somebody said to me, with some of the conditions I had, I should be eating plenty of tomatoes. I'm not quite sure why, but I don't have to be told twice to eat plenty of tomatoes. I love them.
I thought you wanted us to suggest asparagus.
Oh yes, asparagus too. That's the latest. That came from Dr. Nigro, by the way. And Sam, he's a psychiatrist in Cleveland, Ohio. He's on my advisory board, as a matter of fact, for the Scholars for Social Justice. And Sam is, you notice he's being cautious and says, I'm just going to tell you with no comment just what was sent to me. Well, it wouldn't surprise me if it was. I must confess, I went straight downstairs and grabbed a couple of cans of asparagus I bought. And tonight I'm going to make a stew out of them and make a drink and say, here's Tui every now and again. So do you see the point, my friend? This fella, to get to the marketplace, he has to go this distance. That's a long way for him. And there's no little value around him. He should be taxed the least. We'd open up the country. So, oh yes, Jimmy Carter had established a committee to investigate whether or not the United States is overpopulated. What was their conclusion? It's not overpopulated, but some cities are. Are they overpopulated, or are they underprepared for the population, which I think is the real story? They don't have sufficient planning for, sewage and the water supply and all sorts of things, marketplaces, things
like
grown.
Houston.
Pardon?
Like Houston.
Is that well?
Houston has no bylaws, nothing.
Good
You
Lord.
build anything anywhere there.
And it turned out bad, has
It
it?
turned out bad.
Yeah, well, they need some control over that. I mean, it's what happened here now? Spark Street in Ottawa is a good example of it. It was just a downtown place, and they decided to turn it into a mall, a walking mall. I found it lovely to go there just on a Saturday and stroll in the sun, and this walking mall, very beautiful. We've got one of them established in the centre of Sydney the same way, with a huge television screen for watching the news, etc. And anyway, in Spark Street, they've turned it into this mall. Along comes a bank, purchases a building, kicks the tenants out, there's a bank there. Then comes another bank, and it has been said somewhere by economists, I've got this, read it somewhere, that banks ultimately destroy. They're trying to get in on the ground floor of everything that happens, and they destroy the value of the mall. You can see it in Spark Street, the whole thing now there, and the Australian High Commission's in one of them, by the way, up in the building there. They've rented this out to commercial interest, all that sort of thing, but not for the stores that were there. So they destroy these things. So there's what could happen. Tax only. Look at, they'd save a whole army of accountants. And of course students would say, oh, that would put me out of a job, I'm studying accountancy. Well, that's just too bad. They'll find something else to do. And, but Aristotle did a splendid analysis of this solution, and so have others, exposing its erroneous nature. 3 principal arguments against socialism, and that's the reaction to all of this. Capitalism, we don't want it. But it's spurious capitalism we don't want. Normal capitalism, somebody producing something, what's wrong with that? Society needs it. So there are about 3 major arguments. I have a whole sheet on this, but 3 major arguments against the government seizing everything. The function of a government is to govern, not replace its citizens. What can be done by the lower ought not be done by the higher. The principle of subsidiarity. What you can do and you can do ought not be taken over by the government. If you can do it, then it should be left to you. And a step towards dependence is a step away from independence. That is, from freedom. I learned that one from Father Woodbury as well as the others. So, socialism is not a solution. I have laid out solutions here. First, stop anti-productive investment. We ought to have education concerning the true nature of man, society, and the common good, etc., etc. It is the function of a government to remove impediments to the common good. Compare this with the following. A physician does not heal the patient heals himself. The physician removes the impediments to healing. A teacher does not cause the understanding in the mind of the pupil. The teacher removes obstacles so the student can grasp what is being taught. An orchestra leader does not produce the harmony. This is achieved by the players working collectively while the conductor removes the obstacles to harmony. The manager does not build cars. He coordinates the workers to build the cars, etc. In a similar manner, the government, using its appropriate instruments, should remove obstacles so that the citizenry can work towards the common good. Leisure, the saving of time and effort. Oh, we could go on and on and on and on. It is my opinion that a one-day working week would be possible if these impediments were removed. Now we've got to feed the poor, we've got to do this, do that, do something else. Look at the initiative shown by the people at Notre Dame University the other day. And our good Brian went to prison for it. And by the way, don't forget, if anybody wants to help him, he's holding some money there. He's had a couple of responses. If somebody said if we put $10 in each or something like that, we don't have to put that much in, but if we did, we could pay the what is it called? The
bail.
Bail, yes.
For Father Wesley.
Yeah. We could quickly abolish the taxes on our personal efforts if we just charge people's tax simply on the land values. This is an age of anti-intellectualism in which we tend to solve many issues with our hearts and not our heads. For example, for venereal diseases, we wrongly recommend condoms, not chastity. For crime, we wrongly recommend more police, not the 10 Commandments. So for poverty, we wrongly recommend welfare dispensed by the state, not curing the diseased state of the body economic. Many moderns try to force immoral solutions on us since they cannot solve economic problems facing governments. They resort, for example, to abortion and euthanasia in various guises, such as do not resuscitate orders. And on one occasion when I was in hospital, I had to fight a nun over that. She wanted me to sign something, and no distinctions. And I would have been signing away or making a death warrant or something like that by allowing them to dispense with me if they thought I was a nuisance. So, my friends, in the economic order, we could cure it. Then all the other things would go ahead. For example, all of these things, I've got references here. Oh, I don't know how many footnotes I've got, or end notes. So this must be published. 23 end notes there. I think I left out a page. If we could have the taxation only on that, we'd save a tremendous burden on society. I found in my bank, I received a statement yesterday, and I was granted by the government, what they're calling it again, $250 I was given.
You got your stimulus money.
Your
Yeah.
stimulus, yeah.
Don't spend it all in one place.
Well, I also got my certificate for the box, for conversion of the television. But you can see what I'm getting at. And we're talking about this humanity of the fetus. You see that baby, 6 weeks old, completely formed. It's a beautiful little thing. It says 6 weeks, if I remember correctly. No, 11 to 12 weeks, I'm sorry. Pre-born, they call it. There's a beautiful picture, I don't know whether you've seen it or not, where they operated on the mother No, on the baby, I think it was. They opened the mother up, and the little child's hand came out and grasped a finger. Have you seen that?
Yeah.
Isn't that beautiful? Very
Do
moving.
you know that Matt Drudge lost his job over that? Because he wanted to show it on his show on Fox. He
Good
wanted to
God.
show that picture. Matt Drudge is, well, he's got a website, but he's a reporter, an investigative reporter. And he just wanted to show that picture because it's so arresting.
Yes.
And they wouldn't let him do it. He insisted and he was fired.
Good ghost.
Yeah,
That's
and
conservative.
he wasn't doing it in the context of abortion. It was just, isn't this an
Something
amazing phenomenon here?
Well, you know the motto, don't you? If you can't beat them, yeah, beat them up.
Beat 'em up. I like that.
That's what they do. They attack you.
Yeah.
They do, this is being done. And somebody said to me, and once I spoke like this, and said, "Who's they?" I came very close to saying, "People like you." Yeah. They don't want to fight fairly, discuss something. Like the man who I met in Australia on one occasion, I've mentioned this before. I said something about Vietnamese people. People here don't seem to know this. We've got them flooding into Australia from Vietnam. And one suburb used to be called Bankstown. And during the Second World War, a lot of big American military camp there, we call it Yankstown. But now it should be called Vietnam Town. It's been turned into a marketplace. One half of the place is a railway line. East, it's as it was. West, all Vietnamese. You go through, it's like going through Vietnam. Frankly, I enjoyed going through there and talking to people. But the thing was, all these people coming there, and this man, I said to him about the Vietnamese coming. I've forgotten now. I was writing something, and I just wondering what he thought about the immigration coming into the country. I didn't mention any specific nationality, and he said, "Well, I'm against the Vietnamese coming here." And I said, "Why?" He hesitated for a minute. "Well, they're nearly all Catholics." "Oh?" I said, "Well, what's wrong with that?" He said, "Well, I'm an atheist myself." I said, "How do you account?" No, I said, "Phil," he went on talking. I said, "Let's back up for a minute. How do you account for the proofs of the existence of God?" He says, "There aren't any." I said, "I'm sorry. I've been teaching them for about 35 years, and I'm sorry, I'm ready to defend them." "Oh, let's change the subject."
Yeah, as soon as you call them.
Mr. Ostrich.
He got an eye full of my sister, and he was hanging around a bit. We're in a motel down the south coast, and we had to inspect the property. And this fellow he wouldn't face the proofs at all.
I never caught your definition of capitalism.
Capitalism, well, the investment of money, goods or services to earn one's living, or to get a return on the money. Investment to bring back return. But you've got to know the distinction between what do you invest in it, what do you do with the money. And that's what I've challenged people on. So investing to get goods, money or services to get a return. Now that's perfectly all right. Oh, and one thing about usury. Let me explain about usury, by the way. This is thrown particularly up at Catholic philosophers. Strictly, that's not a term that I like, Catholic philosophy, because philosophy is like mathematics and chemistry. It's not Catholic or anything else. But I am a practicing Catholic, and I'm a philosopher. As I said to a gentleman, by the way, you know the gentleman that wrote about the drugs in the mind, my article? He's Jewish, he told me. And but he paid great compliments about the drug I wrote on, the paper I wrote on drugs in the mind, had it published years ago. Now I've... Usury. In the Middle Ages, any interest was considered immoral. But the Merchant of Venice, for instance, that's what the centre of that is, with Shakespeare's Merchant of Venice. I played the part of Shylock, as a matter of fact. So I know all about it, see? But it used to be investing, getting interest was considered usury. But it's not now. And this is thrown up at people. That's not the point. Money in the Middle Ages was to be used, not to be invested. They didn't invest money then. Only Jewish people did, apparently. But investing money to get interest Now, it's perfectly all right, because money has a second function now. It can be used to sort of buy in advance and things like that. And it's perfectly normal. But usury, this is what usury properly is. And it seems to be drastically misunderstood by people. St. Thomas has an article on it, incidentally, beautiful article. Anything which is consumptible, something which is consumed. Supposing this good lady, I lent her a bottle of wine and a loaf of bread. They have no other value than just being consumed. She gives them back to me in a week's time, and then I say, now you've got to pay me 5% of their value. That's usury. I'm charging her for the use of it. I've got back everything that I gave her, but I'm charging her, what I'm charging really is for the use of it. That's what usury is. It only has one function, bottle of wine and a loaf of bread, and that is to be used, consumed. But money has more than one function. It is not only can be used to purchase goods and services, and that's what it was in the Middle Ages. But today it can be used for other things. For instance, somebody wants to get a business and they haven't got enough money. You lend them money, but you'd lose something by lending them the money. If my own mother, as Woodbury put it, if your own mother lent you $100 and thereby you've been deprived of some interest, say, you could charge her the interest. Of course, none of us would do that. But it shows the point. So usury is charging for the use of something. And money has more than one use. So lending money, you're entitled to get interest. But if you lent something which is a consumptible to be consumed only, that's the only value of it, that would be usury. I think we've had enough. I'll fold up now. Thank you.